My ex lets his girlfriend take photos with my son as if she were his mother to get followers and likes, but we're going back to court to put that crazy woman in her place. I had just woken up when I heard Lucas crying from across the house, like a siren that wouldn't stop. The kind of crying that pulls you out of any rest, smacks you in the face with the reality of the world, and reminds you every second that you have zero control over anything anymore. It was 7:15 a.m., and I already knew this was going to be one of those days. Lucas was only 3 months old, and it seemed like whenever he wasn't sleeping or feeding, he was crying. I, at 30, freshly out of a messy marriage with Gabriel, was living my life on a fragile balance between trying to do the best I could for him and dealing with the turbulence of a separation that, in my mind, should have been over by now, but in reality, felt like it had only just begun. At the time, I felt almost alone in a small, simple, but cozy house. I lived in a quiet neighborhood with tall trees and the distant hum of traffic, which was like soft background music to my daily routine. When Lucas slept, it was the only time I felt like I could breathe. But, soon enough, the peace would be gone, because Gabriel, my ex, never seemed to follow through on his promises. He would leave me to handle the toughest moments, like when Lucas got sick or when I just needed a break. His visits were irregular, and the empty promises he made only led to frustration. When he was around, things were complicated, full of arguments, half-hearted negotiations, and an awkward silence at the end. My life flipped upside down after the divorce. I didn't know how to organize myself, how to juggle being a mom, working, and dealing with all the emotions that were constantly on edge. It didn't help that I was pretty much in the dark about Gabriel and his actions, which honestly seemed more like the behavior of someone who hadn't grown up enough to take on the responsibilities of fatherhood. And then, that's when things really started to get tense. Carla showed up in my life. I didn't really know her, but a friend of Gabriel's told me a bit about how he was so happy with this girl. He was 34, she was 25, a young woman with that kind of vibrant energy I, to be honest, no longer had in my repertoire. One of those people who lives in the moment, never thinking about the future, always full of plans that never come true, and with an easy smile that almost seems fake, but still charms everyone around her. I started seeing her on social media, always with pictures of Lucas, a huge smile on her face, and captions that made it clear, so much love. Not just a bonus mom, but a mom too. My stomach turned. Every time I saw those photos, it felt like my chest was being ripped apart. I was seeing my son, my Lucas, with a woman who barely knew who he really was, being used like an accessory to fill her feed with followers. It wasn't just the fact that she was in the photos. It was the way she portrayed herself as a second mom to my son. Like she had the right to be the center of attention. She posted pictures of him at different times, half-assed captions full of cliches about motherhood and true love, as if their relationship was something intimate and real when, in reality, she hardly knew him. With every click, my discomfort grew. I tried talking to Gabriel about it, calmly, because I knew he'd get defensive. But he just shrugged it off. "Laura, relax. She's cool, and Lucas loves her," he said, like that was supposed to solve everything. Like I didn't know what it meant for Lucas to love someone. Like he had any idea how vulnerable a mother feels when she sees someone else trying to take her place without asking for permission. He didn't get what was at stake. He didn't understand that, for me, this wasn't just about Instagram photos. It was about my son's image being distorted, about the idea that anyone could just pop into his life and act like everything was fine, like he could be treated like some product to boost someone's social media engagement. It was as if, all of a sudden, my son had become a showcase for an influencer parade, and I was the one who didn't get the logic. Because his logic was different. It wasn't about what was healthy for Lucas, or what really mattered. It was about living a life where he and Carla were creating something cute for the world to see. I started to realize that everything I cared about, everything that made me fight, seemed to be ignored. And the worst part was that Gabriel, with his way of dodging any conversation that made him uncomfortable, just didn't care. For him, the reality was simple. She has a right to be with Lucas. He's my son too. He didn't see the difference between a biological mother and a new girlfriend trying to take that space. And that's when the anger started to take over me. Anger that came from a deep place, from someone who feels like something precious is being ripped away. The feeling that no matter how hard I tried to protect my son, life was veering down a path where I had no control over anything. And all I wanted was for my pain to be acknowledged, for him to understand what this was doing to me. But instead, I was becoming more and more alone in this silent battle. Sometimes, things happened in such a subtle, insidious way that it was hard to notice the impact in the moment. But deep down, I knew the situation was about to explode. And that only made me more anxious. If I didn't have control now, what would happen when Lucas was older? What would he understand about all of this? What would he think of me and everything I was doing to protect him? Things were getting harder and harder to bear. I considered myself a rational person, someone who could keep her emotions in check, but as the weeks went by, I felt exhaustion taking over. Lucas's crying, the lack of sleep, the constant worry about the future, it was all weighing on me. But what was really destroying me was seeing Carla slowly infiltrating my life in such a quiet, yet so invasive way. She was taking my place in a way I couldn't accept. It wasn't just the photos. It was what they represented. It was what she was trying to build, an image of motherhood that wasn't hers. Carla seemed to be on a constant search for validation. I already knew she loved being in front of the camera, posting selfies all the time, living for the likes and comments. She, an aspiring influencer, was starting to gain some attention because of it. But with every photo of her with Lucas, with those captions that made it sound like she was his mom, my stomach twisted. My little angel. Sparkling heart, my blessing. Smiling face with halo. That's how she spoke about my son. Like he was an accessory to her feed, like she had some right over him, over the love he gave me. That wasn't just disrespecting me as a mother. It was appropriation in a way that made me question how far she was willing to go to build this image. And Gabriel. Well, he was so wrapped up in his new relationship that he seemed completely unaware of the gravity of it all. I knew he was in love with Carla, but he couldn't see what she was doing. Or maybe he just didn't care. I, who had lived with him for so long, knew how he operated, always avoiding responsibilities, looking for a quick, painless solution to everything. And he cared more about her smile, her sweet words, and the cute pictures than the reality of a mother who was there, alone, trying to do the best she could for her son. One morning, after yet another photo Carla posted of Lucas with the caption, "My little love, my son." Revolving hearts. I just couldn't hold it in anymore. The anger I had been bottling up for weeks exploded all at once. I grabbed my phone and called Gabriel, my voice firm, trying not to let the emotions spill over. "Gabriel, you need to tell Carla to take those pictures down. I don't want him showing up on her social media anymore, not even as a joke. This isn't right. He's my son, and I'm not giving my consent for any of this." He responded with that calm arrogance I knew all too well, as if he was giving me a childish lecture. "Laura, relax. It's not a big deal. Carla's super nice to Lucas, and he likes her. It's all good. You're overreacting." It felt like a knife had been driven into my chest. Overreacting. How could he call me that? He didn't understand how much it hurt, how I was fighting, alone, to be the mother Lucas needed. To protect my son from the world, to give him a decent life, while he was over there, in a castle of lies with Carla, pretending everything was fine. "You're disregarding my rights as his mother," I said, my voice shaking. "She's invading my son's space, and you're doing nothing about it. You have to do something." He stayed firm, and his words became colder, more distant. "Laura, you're being irrational. Let Carla have her space. Lucas is fine, and that's all that matters. You're making a problem out of nothing." At that moment, frustration took over me so completely that I felt a sharp pain in my chest, like all the air had been sucked out of me. I knew by then that, for him, this would never be an important issue. He wasn't going to do anything. And if it was up to his goodwill, Lucas would just continue to be another accessory in the love story between Carla and Gabriel. A story where he, as always, was dodging his responsibilities. I couldn't wait anymore. I wasn't going to let this slide. I couldn't allow the love of a mother to be disrespected like that. It wasn't just my pain at stake. It was Lucas's future, his perception of who he was, and who had the right to care for him. That's when I decided to seek help. I didn't know what else to do. I, who had always been independent, who always preferred to handle things myself, now found myself in a situation where the only way out seemed to be consulting a lawyer. I didn't know how the whole image rights and paternity thing worked, but I knew what was happening wasn't normal. It was an improper use of my son's image. It was a violation of my rights as a mother, and I couldn't let it continue. The meeting with the lawyer was tense. I couldn't stop talking, explaining what was going on, how Carla was taking on a role that wasn't hers, how social media had turned into a platform for manipulation. The lawyer was clear: you have the right to decide what's best for your son, and using his image without your consent is a violation. But she also warned me that involving the legal system in something so personal could have complicated repercussions. From that point on, I knew the situation had escalated. It wouldn't just be about asking for the photos to be taken down anymore. What Carla was doing was an attempt to appropriate something that was only mine and Lucas's. And that, I wasn't going to let slide. I was exhausted. Those weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions and frustration, and more, it seemed like things were slipping out of my control. Gabriel's indifferent look, Carla's insistence, and the feeling of being painted as the villain in the story, it was suffocating. It wasn't just about the photos. It wasn't just about Carla's presence on social media. It was about something much deeper: my right to be Lucas's mother, to have control over his life and his image. I couldn't take any more of the arguments with Gabriel, who was becoming more and more insensitive. He truly believed he was the good guy, that Carla was doing Lucas a favor by being so loving toward him. Every time I brought it up, he'd defend himself, as if I were some obsessive person, as if my concern didn't matter. He was so wrapped up in his new life, in the perfect world he was trying to create with Carla, that he didn't seem to notice the impact it was having on Lucas. And Carla's attitude. Oh, that was what bothered me the most. She wasn't just posting pictures of Lucas, like he was some sidekick in her life show. No, she was taking ownership of something that wasn't hers. I'd look at those captions like, "My reason to live," and "With my son, everything is easier," and pure rage would consume me. Son. Lucas wasn't her son, no matter how many pictures she posted smiling next to him. But she kept going more and more, as if she had the right to do that, as if she were his real mom. I felt powerless. It seemed like my voice wasn't being heard, like I was shouting into an empty room. I needed a decisive move, something that could really change the situation. That's when I decided, finally, to take more serious action. The conversation with the lawyer was the turning point. She was clear, assertive, and helped me realize that Carla's behavior was completely outside the legal limits. The photos of Lucas were being posted without my consent, and that wasn't just an invasion of my privacy as a mother, it was a violation of my rights. And the worst part, if she kept doing this, the consequences could be even more serious. As the legal guardian, I had the authority to decide what was best for my son, including his exposure on social media. When I heard that, something inside me ignited. I couldn't wait any longer. The idea of filing a lawsuit scared me, but the only other option was to keep watching my son be treated like someone's accessory. I wasn't going to let that happen. I started gathering evidence. Screenshots of every photo of Lucas that Carla had posted, the captions, the comments. My lawyer stood by me, guiding me through each step. She told me the court would likely hear my side, and that my chances of winning were strong, considering I was Lucas's legal mother. But at the same time, she was preparing me for a battle. I knew this wouldn't be easy. Gabriel was completely on Carla's side, and his behavior was only getting worse. With the decision to file the lawsuit, I found myself in a spiral of conflicting emotions. While I felt a wave of relief for finally taking control of the situation, I was also terrified about what would come next. Every step I took, it felt like things only got more tense. Carla kept posting the pictures. But now, she was using my situation to create even more drama. Sorry, but sometimes things aren't as we wish. Don't worry, Lucas. Mommy will always love you. 2 hearts. That caption cut me like a knife. How dare she refer to my son that way? And Gabriel, of course, didn't help. He started distancing himself even more. I tried to talk to him, to explain what was happening, but he was unyielding, more concerned about protecting his relationship with Carla than with Lucas's well-being. Laura, you're being selfish. You want to destroy my happiness with Carla, don't you? Lucas will grow up and see that you didn't accept his dad's happiness, and that's going to be a huge burden for him. I looked at him, and it felt like I didn't even know him anymore. How could he accuse me of trying to destroy his happiness? I wasn't trying to destroy anyone. I just wanted Lucas to be respected, to be treated with the dignity he deserved. He was a baby, and his mother was being disrespected, as if we had no worth at all. I wanted Gabriel as a father to care more about the truth, more about what was happening to our son. But he seemed to have chosen the easy path: ignore it, run away. The tensions between us kept escalating. When I realized Carla was more involved in Lucas's life than she should have been, I knew something had to change. I had to make a tough but necessary decision. I cut Carla out of Lucas's life completely. I wasn't going to allow her to be around him, not until things were resolved. I didn't know if I was making the right call, but I couldn't keep watching my son being dragged into their lies. And so, the legal battle intensified. The hearings began, and each day felt like an even harder fight. I was tense, scared of what the future held, but also with a growing certainty: I had to fight. I had to protect Lucas. It didn't matter what Gabriel or Carla thought. My mission now was to ensure that my son grew up in an environment where he was respected, where he knew that his mother loved him more than anything in this world. The war was just beginning, and, it seemed, I was alone in this battle. I never imagined my life would take this turn. Until then, all I wanted was to be a good mom to Lucas, to do my best for him, for the both of us. But suddenly, I found myself in the middle of a storm, fighting to protect the one thing I loved most: my son. Every day felt like a battle, and each new attack from Carla was like a knife to my confidence. But when she started spreading the lie that I had kidnapped Lucas, I knew things were about to reach a point of no return. That was the last straw. She made a video on her social media, with that fake dramatic tone, claiming I had taken Lucas from her by force. It was so absurd that it made me feel a mix of anger and fear. How dare she say that? How did she think she could turn the world against me, a mother who was just trying to protect her child? I knew this couldn't go unchallenged. I needed concrete proof to reverse the narrative she was creating, and then it hit me: the video. The video of her accusing me of kidnapping Lucas was evidence in itself. It wasn't just an unfounded accusation, it was a blatant manipulation. That video clearly showed just how far Carla was willing to go for attention. It was exactly what I needed to put things right. With my lawyer's help, we began gathering everything we could. Not just the video, but also screenshots of messages, the photos of Lucas being used without my consent, the manipulative captions. And soon, the tide started to turn. Carla's support on social media began to crumble. People started questioning her intentions. How could anyone so coldly and calculatingly use a child to gain followers? And Gabriel's lack of empathy, which had always been so apparent, became even more glaring. The court was an emotional nightmare. Seeing Carla there, with that look on her face like she knew she was being exposed, gave me a sense of justice being served. She tried to defend herself, but her lies were falling apart in front of everyone. The judge listened to everything, read the evidence, and I stayed silent, waiting. I just wanted him to see the truth. And he did. When the judge announced his decision, the feeling was a whirlwind of relief and accomplishment. He granted me full custody of Lucas. What shocked me most, deep down, was the restraining order against Carla. She was forbidden from getting anywhere near Lucas. I didn't know if I was happier about the victory or finally feeling like I had control of the situation again. Justice had been served. I was protecting my son, and that was all that mattered. Gabriel, for his part, was completely absent throughout the entire process. He didn't try to change anything, didn't make any effort to improve his relationship with Lucas. I was used to his distance, but seeing it all exposed in court, how he didn't care at all, was a blow. The judge took that into account too, and his decision reflected exactly that. He didn't show any desire to be the father Lucas needed, and that reinforced my position as the sole, responsible mother. When it was all over, it felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. The battle had been brutal, but I won. And the most important thing, I won for Lucas. He was now safe from all that toxicity, and I could finally breathe more easily. Life after the trial wasn't magical, of course. The adjustment wasn't simple, but Lucas and I started rebuilding our routine. I was able to focus on being the mother he deserved, without the ghosts of the past haunting us. And then, something I hadn't expected happened. I started getting to know someone new. A man who treated me with respect and care, who cared about what was best for me and for Lucas. He wasn't here to replace anyone, just to support us. It felt like a breath of fresh air. Gabriel and Carla's relationship collapsed. She lost much of her influence on social media when people realized the kind of person she really was. And, to be honest, I don't even know where they are now. It feels like that story is behind us, and what remains is a new beginning for Lucas and me. I finally got what I wanted most: peace. Now, I can look to the future and think that, although it was difficult, it was worth the fight. I won't let anyone take away my right to be Lucas's mother. And more importantly, I know he's in a safer and happier place now, far from all the lies and manipulations. This is our chapter now, a chapter where we can finally be a peaceful, happy family.